All right, so we made 7 diagrams, and this is the we made a domain class diagram, a use case diagram, and like five sequence diagrams. And it's because we wanted to be prepared for a deliverable too. For this domain class diagram, it shows us each class, like the organizer, users, and participants, and while the admin watches them, and they can register, and these two can register for challenges, as the organizer can create them. Activities can be split up into multiple categories, and the challenge can like take generic classes of them.
So the use case diagram, similar to the class diagram we saw above, it also models the system. It's just a different level of abstraction. So as can be seen in the diagram, the actors are on the left-hand side, and each use case, which consists of multiple scenarios, are basically laid out in the descriptions, including each scenario that's part of that use case. We did just kind of group similar scenarios together just to make the diagram more readable. And the one use case that pretty much all these other use cases have in common is sign in. And that's just because before an organizer, participant, or admin can really do any of these things, the first thing they would need to do is sign in.
Yes, so I have the sequence diagram, the first sequence diagram on the document. So my sequence diagram was adding challenge. Am I reading that right, Alben? It's a bit small.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my sequence diagram, I just wanted to make sure that the responses from the system were accurate and could correctly simulate what you might see in a real life system. So mainly for my sequence diagram, I was sure to pay attention to thinking back to other systems I had used and making sure that the feedback I had gotten would be similar to what the user might be expecting. And I also made sure to use quantifiers because our group, I think, is a bit unique and creative in that sense that one of our group members, who will be presenting in a second, came up with using quantifiers to make it faster to read a diagram where a situation, an error situation, might be similar across different fields of input that the user has to enter. So we do have quantifiers that represent those different fields.
Alben, let's see here. Can you increase the zoom on your page by chance? So if you just, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I have sequence diagram. I have the participant joining the challenge, and that happens with the system. They're going to take a name, participant's name, and credit card information. One of the first things that you can get back from the system is a successfully joined challenge. But if that doesn't work out, you're going to get an error, and those errors really simply might look like a card being declined or a processing error. So this sequence diagram is pretty straightforward, but it's covering what happens when the participant joins challenge and the interaction with the system. And then the second one I have here is when a participant creates a team with the system. So there's two options here. So the first one is creating a private team. The second one is just creating a team that's public. The private team in particular requires a unique access code that the participants can enter. And that's where you see in one of the parameters for creating a private team. Now, when it comes to feedback from the system, a successful interaction just is simply successfully creating a team. Errors might look like missing a field, and you can see there's a couple different outcomes for that for quantifiers on the right side, like team name, public private check mark, access code to private team. You also might see something like team name already exists or invalid access code to private team.
my sequence diagram here is to add an activity to a challenge. And so the actor would be the organizer interacting with the system. They would attempt to add an activity to the challenge, and either they would have success and that activity would be added, or failure, and that would be due to a missing bit of data, either an activity type or a quantifier, such as a distance specifier, rep specifier, or mental specifier for the non-physical activities.
So I did another sequence diagram, which was join team. This sequence diagram was a bit simpler than the last sequence diagram I did, which I was grateful for. So essentially, join team, really the only error cases that we could see coming up were if the team wasn't public, then the access code they would use to join a private team being invalid was an error. It included in the else block in the alt box. But in all other cases, if the access code was correct or if the team was public, then very simply the user could just join the team. So yeah, there wasn't too much to that second sequence diagram.
All right, we're done.
Wes?
Okay.